Welcome back to Cheddar's Opening Bell. Salesforce has released its first ever survey on what work looks like now and how it's going to change in the future. The software company spoke to 20,000 people around the world to compile this data on what global citizens find most important about their workplace. And for more on this research, we are joined by Tiffany Bova, Global Growth Evangelist at Salesforce. Tiffany, great to have you on. A key line of questioning in this report was about the next 6 months. So what were the key differences that you saw between what American businesses should be focused on versus businesses across the rest of the world?
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. I'd say that there was this big diversity actually between what people expected from their employers during the next 6 months. The good news is that a lot of it is around employee health, around health and safety, around working and how to get back to work. But many people actually want to keep working from home. They don't actually want to go back to the office. So the three themes we found were empower workers to do their job, prioritizing health and safety, and then becoming much more value driven, which is really great. But the good news is between global and the US, number one was to have the technology to ensure safety at work.
It really is just a fascinating time that we're going through, just in terms of the change that we're seeing. And you mentioned so many people who say that they just want to continue working from home. How big of a concern is safety for people, just in terms of how safe they're going to be? Are people feeling comfortable that they can get back to the office if they want to?
Yes, I mean, I think part of it is also workplace design. It's not only sort of scheduling your people and making sure they're safe when they come into your office or into your building, but also that they're safe when they're within the four walls. How do you coordinate meetings? How do you actually make sure that teams are still able to work? But more importantly, it's how do you continue to work in this hybrid environment? It's really about people wanting to be more digital, because we've now learned over the last 7 or 8 months that that's possible, but that doesn't mean that's the preference. And so that diversity between those groups of wanting to work from the office and also wanting to work from home. But the big thing here is that business leaders have a choice, right? They either have to reestablish the status quo of the way things were and the way things they used to be, or they can really think about reimagining what the future of work is going to look like.
Do you think that American businesses have fallen short when it comes to the mental health of their employees?
Well, I can say this. I was just listening to your previous segment about women in the workforce. I think mental health is just so important, but it's so complex, right? Making sure that people still feel connected. I don't actually like the term social distancing because I feel like we're being social, in a virtual way. But the physical distancing can take its toll. And so there's lots of things that companies can do to make sure that their people feel like they're still connected. Having all hands meetings, having team meetings, just reaching out and doing fun things virtually that you possibly can do, not only with your employees, but also with your customers. I mean, I think one of the things we did when this first happened was our CEO, Mark Benioff, challenged us to do 1 million conversations with our customers. And those conversations were just fantastic for us to hear how they were doing. It also gave us an opportunity to keep our people engaged early on. But more importantly, it was a way for us to figure out how do we, together in a collaborative way, find our way forward.
What do you think are some of the skills that workers said are important to them, to businesses and workers, just as we push through this economic recovery?
Yeah, we not only have a COVID crisis, right? We have a job crisis. And so part of this is that many people are really interested in reskilling themselves for the future workforce, whatever that may be. So a lot of the things that we heard back was, how do I become more adaptable? How do I get more collaborative and resilient? And how do I hone into my creativity, right? How do we get more creative in solving problems if I can't be face to face with customers? But more importantly, it's how do we lean into empathy? How do we try and understand what others are going through? Because at the end of the day, this is how do we critically think our way through this? And so those are the skills we need. But what's also changed during this time is many employees are much more willing to do virtual learning. Whether it's on a virtual learning management platform, whether it's watching YouTube videos or whatever it might be, but really trying to say, hey, listen, if I have to try to get back into the workforce, if I'm not working right now, what skills will I need? If I am working, in order to make myself more valuable or to add more to the company and to my teams, maybe I need to hone in on some additional skills. So there's so much great news out of this report around the fact that people are highly interested in reskilling themselves during this time.
Just the idea of corporations and businesses has changed so much, and more Americans are looking at corporations to take social stances, which usually businesses had a very hands-off approach to that. Is that something that you think will continue?
I hope so, but it isn't just about sort of sharing the mission and sharing the values. It's also about figuring out how do we put those to action. And action is really also driven by the metrics and the ways in which executives are measured and managed and how they're compensated, as well as employees. I think if everybody understands the mission, that's part of it. But you really have to be able to show each individual how their action plays a role in that brand sort of vision or model that they want to put forward. So the good news is that we've really seen a heightened acceleration, if you will, of this conversation of companies of all sizes around the globe. It's not just the big enterprises. But the good news is also that it's coming from employees. It's coming from the bottom up. Look, we want to work for a company that shares in the values that we have. And then even from an acquisition of recruiting new employees, right, with the skills and having the same values that you may have as a brand. So I think it's really important to understand that this isn't just about vision and mission. It's also about action and how can we measure those things.
And just really quickly, how important is adaptability for these companies, especially in just this really crazy time that we're in?
Well, that came back as number one. It was an absolute high priority, right? Workforce development must be top of mind and being adaptable to all the new things that are getting thrown at us on a daily basis. Working remote, working back in the office, maybe working remote again, how to have team meetings or whatever it might be. So being adaptable requires people to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, unfortunately. But if they have the desire and willingness to continue to learn and skill up, they'll be in a much better position. And so adaptability is not something you take in college, right? It's just something you're going to have to learn along the way. But if you've got teams that are supporting the fact that you may fail and learn and try again, that's what's important.
Absolutely. Okay, Tiffany Bova, Global Growth Evangelist at Salesforce. Really great to have you on. Appreciate it.